Philippians chapter 4 this morning. Philippians chapter 4. I want to try to help you all this morning. Of course, we're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving this week, and thankfulness is something that unfortunately a lot of people struggle with, and I want to try to help you with this, and I think maybe to kind of help you a little bit, I want to try to play with your mind a little bit. I hope you don't mind if I try to just play with your mind a little bit, but before we talk about being thankful and how blessed we are, I want us to just take a look at just reality and what it's like in our country right now. And right now in the United States, there's quite a few people that are struggling financially with poverty. And here's some statistics about poverty. And according to these statistics, this is someone who makes less than $18,550 for a family of 3, $24,230 for a family of 4. And there are 46.7 million people in the United States that are under that. 14.8% of the U.S. African American poverty rate is 26.2%. 10.8 billion people. Hispanic poverty rate 23.6%. It's 13 million. White poverty rate is 10%. Just reminding us how racist our country is, because there's a smaller percentage of white people in poverty than other races, so we all need to make sure we fix that and get some Democrats in there that'll level the playing field, right? I'm messing with your heads right now, but Native American poverty rate, 28.3%. And you all just remember that when you're celebrating Thanksgiving this week, that we came and stole this country from the Indians, and now 28% of them are living in poverty. And so I hope you all feel good about that. You're stuffing your faces this week. But anyway, people with disabilities poverty rate, 28.5%. Children in poverty, 15.5 million. Children in poverty, that's 21% of all children under 18. And it could go on and on. I can get you all depressed about these statistics. It's terrible. All right? Y'all have nothing to be thankful for. This is a terrible country. All right? And I'm playing with your minds right now, okay? But listen. Poverty in America, all right, while those numbers are terrible, okay, and while it's sad, and I'm not picking on anybody in poverty, but at the same time, here's some other statistics about America, okay? Did you know that in America that 99% of people have television sets? 99% of people, and according to this one survey I was reading, the average American watches more than 4 hours of TV each day, or 28 hours a week, or 2 months of nonstop TV watching per year. In a 65-year life, that person will have spent 9 years glued to the tube. Okay, now listen, we're doing pretty good in America when you can spend 2 months out of the year doing nothing but watching television. Okay, we obviously don't have to work real hard to survive, do we? All right? So 99% of households have at least one television. The average number of TV sets in the U.S. household is 2.24. Okay? So, while I read some depressing statistics over there, we got some evidence here too, and there's a lot of things we can go into, a lot of statistics we could look at that shows we're doing pretty good in America, aren't we? Now, look, we're in election year right now, okay? For the next year, you are going to hear nothing from the Republicans but how terrible we have it in the last, 8 years because of Obama. And while I'm 100% for getting on to Obama for a lot of the stuff he's done, we're still doing pretty good, okay? I'm not trying to give Obama any credit for that. We're doing good in spite of him, okay? We're doing good in spite of most of these politicians we have and the people running our country. We're doing pretty good, but did you know that all we would have to do to fix a lot, to help these statistics a ton? Okay, so I read you these statistics, and it was people that are making less than $18,550. That's our standard of poverty. Well, you know how we could make that percentage go way lower? We could just lower the poverty standard. All right, so now let's say it's 15,000. Well, if we do that, that percentage is going to drop drastically, isn't it? Isn't that kind of what they do with a lot of the unemployment numbers, all right? They quit counting people that have just given up looking for work, right? And so the unemployment numbers keep going down, right? What if we lowered the poverty rate to under $10,000? Well, then that number is going to be even better, right? And I know what you're thinking, yeah, but they're still going to be struggling. But here's the thing. We have an extremely high standard in America for, what is considered poverty, I believe. Because here's the thing. While we've got a lot of people in poverty, there's people all over this world that would love to be in poverty in America. That's why there's people all over the world trying to get into this country. Because being in poverty in America is way better than living in most places in the world. And I absolutely agree. And really the truth is, we've been made to feel like victims in America, okay? We've been made to feel this way, a lot of it from politicians, because they're trying to convince us that our lives are terrible because of the other politicians, and if you elect them, your lives will get better. The advertisers, they're always showing you all these things that you don't have, that you need to have to feel happy. And you've got the news media, too, that's telling you how bad you have it all the time. I mean, we've just one example I saw here recently. I don't know if you've followed this controversy going on at that university in Missouri with all the horrible things these young people are facing because of racism and stuff there. But I was listening to them interviewing one guy. He's been going to college for 7 years, okay? This is an African American. He's been going to college for 7 years. Now listen, if you're able to go to college for 7 years, I mean, after 12 years or 13 years of regular school and then 7 years of college, that's something to be pretty thankful for. I mean, isn't college normally expensive? I mean, if you've been in college for 7 years, shouldn't you have quite a bit of education? Shouldn't you be able to get a really good job? Well, this fellow that they were interviewing, who's been in college for 7 years, was complaining and talking about how he feels like a victim and he feels unsafe because somebody drove by the college with a Confederate flag on their truck. And he feels unsafe because of that. Now, let me tell you something. If you feel intimidated and unsafe because somebody has a Confederate flag in their truck, and you have been going to college for 7 years and you still feel that way, you are a loser, my friend. I'm sorry, but you are pathetic. I mean, most people who are successful in life, they don't care about what's going on in other people's heads. They don't care about little things like that. And in our country, we are so spoiled. I mean, we are so spoiled rotten that people who live in a country where they're being well-fed, able to basically live their life doing nothing but going to school, still are complaining and feel like victims because they know there's people out there that don't like them. Because somebody uses a symbol that they think represents racism or something. And what I want to try to illustrate to you today is that what makes a person thankful, it has nothing to do with, how much money you have, how much stuff you have, your circumstances. It's a mindset thing. It's all about your mindset. And in America, we are so blessed in this country that we don't even think about things that we should be very thankful for. You don't have to turn there, but in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 27, I think I might have referenced this last Sunday night or Wednesday. If you go in 1 Kings 10, this is after Solomon is taken over and he's king in Israel. And Israel is so blessed. They are so prosperous during this time. It's talking about all the things that Solomon is bringing in to Israel. I mean, Israel is blessed beyond belief. And in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 27, it says, "And he made silver to be in Jerusalem as stones, and cedars made he to be as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance." Silver was like stones. You know what that basically is saying? They didn't even account for it. If somebody had silver, who cares? That's nothing. If you all brought me a bunch of rocks from the driveway and said, "I want to put this in the offering," I'm like, we don't really need rocks in the offering. We've got plenty of rocks around here. But imagine if you brought silver. And I'm like, we don't need your silver. We've got plenty of that. Can you imagine being that prosperous that we didn't even care about your silver? I mean, we can't even imagine that today. But you know what? In our country today, some of the things that we have, we don't even account for them. If you have a home with heat, that's nothing. You can have a home that is heated during the wintertime, and you can still be a victim. You can still be considered in poverty. You can have a refrigerator in your home that keeps your food cold. You can have a freezer in there so you can put your ice cream and have ice cubes just so you can have your drink cold, and you can still be a victim in this country. You could still be considered in poverty. You can have air conditioning in your house in the summertime. You can have a car that can get you wherever you want to go in just a short amount of time, and we don't even consider that, do we? We don't even factor that in. We don't even take that into consideration, yet there was a time when only rich people had those things. But now, even the poor have those things in many cases. Having multiple outfits. We don't think about that. We take food and water for granted. Have you ever been in a position, any of you, where you didn't know if you would ever eat again? That's the way it is for many people in many countries, where you didn't know where you were going to get a drink. All of us in here today, we can go into multiple rooms in our house, and all we've got to do to get water is turn a knob, and boom, water. In fact, we can even just turn a knob, and boom, hot water, and take a hot bath. And we don't even, that's nothing. We don't even think about that. That's how blessed we are. We take that for granted. Where other countries, if they just have water to drink, they're thankful. They're thrilled. Clothing, look at all the outfits we have in our house. I was in a home one time. These people, they were what we would all consider poor. They were people that, the world would consider poor, the government would consider poor. And whenever you would walk into their house, their kids used to ride the bus, and we would go into their house, and they literally had this massive pile of clothes. And these kids came on the bus for a long time, and I would notice over the months as we would go there and visit regularly, this pile of clothes just kept getting bigger and bigger. I don't think they ever washed their clothes. And I think they just kept getting new clothes. You should have seen the pile of clothes in this house. It was crazy how much clothes they had, but yet they were considered poor. But in many countries, if you just have clothes to wear, you feel blessed. You're thankful. And we don't even think about it. Just piles of them, and it's nothing. Shelter. When was the last time we almost died from a natural disaster? How many, we all look like we survived the big snowstorm pretty good, didn't we? You know why? Because we had warm houses. We stayed in our house. We kept warm. A lot of us, we were able to put our vehicles inside, have our vehicles in shelter from the storm. That's how good we have it. We don't almost die. We didn't have to fear that we're not going to survive this. Your health. What price tag would you put on keeping you or your loved ones healthy? You know how many people now have different physical problems, that make rich people that would give every dollar that they have just to be healthy. Maybe just to be able to see. They would give everything they have just to be able to walk again and just be healthy and not be in pain. But we don't even think about that, do we? We don't even factor that in. When was the last time somebody was trying to kill you? When was the last time you had to fear for your life? When was the last time you got shot at? Most of us have never been shot at. Most of us, we're not worried about that at all, yet in some parts of the country, in some parts of our state, you got to worry about that, don't you? Chicago, talking about Chicago. You do. Because it's that wicked, but we don't have to worry about that. So I know what you're all thinking. I'm an American. I have a right to complain. And you're going to listen to Republicans all year trying to convince everybody that they're really bad off because of Obama. And let me tell you, there's plenty of things we can get on to him for. But listen, they're using that, trying to get your votes. Politicians, they all got where they are by convincing people that they're victims and they're the ones that can save them. But listen, I'm not saying our country is not going downhill. I'm not saying our leaders are not getting us in a lot of trouble. But no matter what, we should be thankful in America today. And what does a person need to be content? Because I want to make y'all feel bad if y'all feel like victims and if you've been complaining. We're going into Thanksgiving right now. But what gives a person the right to complain? What gives a person the right to feel like a victim? Because I'm sure, y'all don't have to admit it to me, but I know, Y'all are Americans. Y'all probably feel like a victim in one way or the other, okay? That we are trained to feel that way. That's why the stuff's going on in Missouri at the college there. These people, they go to college, and in college today, they're teaching everybody you're victims, all right? Especially if you're not a white, conservative male. Unless you're a white conservative male, you are a victim. And it's ridiculous. But what do we need? And really, all we need to be content is the right mindset. And being thankful has nothing to do with how much a person has or doesn't have. Being thankful that has nothing to do with a chemical imbalance in the brain. Being thankful has nothing to do with your current circumstances. And being thankful is 100% about how you look at things. How do you look at things? So how should we look at things to be a thankful people? Go to Philippians chapter 4 and verse 11. Philippians chapter 4, verse 11. It says, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content." He learned it. It's something he figured out. He learned this. "I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and suffer need. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me." Paul knew how to be content in every situation, and he was in some situations way worse than anything you and I have ever been through, or probably ever will be, and he knew how to be content. He figured it out. He learned it. Okay, so what do we, what is it we need? How should we look at things? What will cause us to be thankful people? Well, first of all, first thing you need to do, Philippians chapter 2, verse 4 and 5 says, "Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." The first thing you need to do to be a thankful person, the first mindset thing you need to have, the mindset you need to have, is you've got to stop looking at yourself. You got to stop looking at yourself. That's our problem today in America. We are very self-centered people. We're always thinking about ourselves. It's what we do. And that is not the mindset a Christian ought to have. Jesus himself, when we see him on earth, he was worried about us suffering in hell for all eternity. He was more worried about us suffering in hell than he was about going to the cross. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2 says, "Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." Jesus Christ had no love for the cross. He had no love for the shame. He despised the shame. He prayed to the Father, "If it be possible, let this cup pass from me." But the Bible also says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. You know why? Jesus wasn't thinking about himself. He was not thinking about himself. He was thinking about you and me. And he had this mindset that, look, if I don't go to the cross, they all will go to hell for all of eternity. And so you know what? He did it anyway. And the Bible refers to the joy that was set before him. He willingly went to the cross because he wasn't thinking about himself. You and I, we're not willing to face anything because we're thinking about ourselves. We're not willing to sacrifice anything because we're thinking about ourselves. We're worried, we're upset all the time because we think about ourselves. And listen, there is always someone who is worse off than you and would love to switch places with you. There are. I mean, you can complain about whatever you want. "Oh, I'm having a problem with my hand hurts." Well, you know what? There's some people that would love to have a hand. You ever thought about that? "Oh, I'm having trouble with my eye." Well, there's some people that are blind and can't see. I mean, my foot hurts. Some people, they just love to have the foot. I mean, there's always somebody worse off than you. I hate to steal your, a lot of you take pleasure in feeling sorry for yourself. And I hate to steal that from you, but you know what? You need to get over it. You need to just be thankful, be content. Somebody is worse off than you, but we are so self-centered. Our world, what's this little bubble that's just we're inside of, and we don't see past that. We can't see past the nose on the end of our face, and therefore we feel sorry for ourselves. You see the television all the time that gets you to focus on yourself and the things that you don't have and the things that you should have. And you get to feeling sorry for yourself. And we've got to think about other people. Okay, we've been commanded to do that. Also, we need to remember Because remember, this is about mindset. You need to remember what you started with and what you're going to end with. Okay, now what did we start with? Well, 1 Timothy 6:6 says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out, and having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith, and have pierced themselves through with many sorrows. But thou, O man of God, flee these things, and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. Did you see that? He said having food and raiment, to be content with that. But they that will be rich. So what is rich? Okay, well, according to America, the rich are those who make, this much a year. They always have the politicians telling, they're always determining who's rich, and they're just going to tax them like crazy so they can give it to all the poor people. All right, we've all heard that, but according to the Bible, who are rich? Well, that's probably those who have more than enough food and raiment. You notice it didn't even mention shelter in there? If this was the New American Standard Bible, what they would probably have to put in there, I haven't read the New American Standard Version, but I picture it saying, having food and raiment and 2 cars and a nice house and, and having, 401k and, a job with benefits, let us therewith be content. Because that's the American standard, isn't it? But that's not what our King James says, having food and raiment. But you and I, we can have all the food we want, we can have plenty of clothing, and we're still going to cry like a baby because we're a poor little victim because we don't have what our neighbor has. And that's just too bad. But it's about a mindset. And what did it say in there? It says, we brought nothing into the world. When you were born, okay, you came out naked, didn't you? You came with nothing. And when you die, you take nothing with you. You're going to get put in a coffin. You're going to get put underground. And the best that you might be able to do, maybe they'll put you in a nice suit, or if you're a lady, a nice dress, and you get to rot in that. Whatever they put in your coffin, you get to rot in it. Wow. So really, what are you taking? Nothing. You take nothing with you. And Job said the same thing in Job chapter 1, verse 20. After he's lost everything, what did he say? Shall we not receive good at the hand of the Lord and not evil also? And then he said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. What was he saying? He's like, I didn't bring anything into this world. I'm not taking anything out of this world. All that the Lord just took from me, yes, he took it from me today, but I've had it for years. And you know what he did? He was thankful that he had all those possessions for all those years. He was thankful for all those meals that he'd eaten, all those good times he had with his children. And you know what? There are some people today that would love to have your problems. We all can complain about all our family problems, but there are some people that would love to have family problems, but they don't. You know why? Because they don't have families. We like to complain about how your kids are driving you crazy, but you know what? There are some people today whose kids aren't driving crazy because they don't have any. And they would love to have that problem. There are some people, they would love to have your problems. But they don't, because they don't have anything. And a lot of times we look at Job and we say, wow, poor Job, look at all he lost. But there are some people that have never had what Job had. He had 10 children, they never had one. He had great possessions, some have never had hardly anything. And so really, when you think about it, Job, okay, let's say he had 20 really good years with those children. There's some people who had 0. See, it's all about how you look at it, isn't it? But all we want to do is think about, look at what God took away. We don't think about, look what God gave me. It's a mindset. You've got to learn that. Job understood it. Job got it. We got to look at every day as a gift. Okay? So if you really think it would be that, it would be that horrible if you lost everything, it would be that devastating. Well, let me ask you, are you enjoying the fact that today you have these things? Are you enjoying the fact that today you have your family? Today you have your kids? Today you have your possessions? Are you thanking God for those things every day, because you might not have them tomorrow? So why aren't we thankful with these things? It's because we've just got the wrong mindset. We've got to learn that the source of everything that we have, it comes from God. Colossians 1:16, by him were all things created that are in heaven, that are in the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for you. Oh wait, no, for him. Okay, for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. We think that we're the result of everything that we have, but the result of everything we have is God. Oh, it was my hard work. It was my great abilities. Well, it was God that gave you those abilities. It was God that gave you the ability to be able to go out there and work hard. There are some people that can't go out and work hard because they physically can't do it. They don't have that ability. It's God that deserves the glory for everything we have. And if we would look at it as his, then it wouldn't bother us as much if he were to take it away. For example, I don't have a Lamborghini, all right? I don't have one. But if you let me use one, I would enjoy it, wouldn't I? I mean, that'd be fun to drive around. I could really look cool. It's like, hey, you can use this indefinitely. And maybe you let me use it for a few months, or maybe even let me use it for a year. And then if after a year you said, you know what, I need my car back, I'm going to be okay with it. You know why? It was never mine. I'm just glad I got to use it. I remember there was a recall thing on my van years ago, and the Ford company, I had to take it in, and they gave me this loaner car. This van, it was not that great of a van. It was having a lot of problems, and they gave me this nice new loaner car that I got to use for like 4 months. 4 months. I got to use this nice car that got really good gas mileage, a car I would never be able to afford, and I enjoyed every day I had that car. I enjoyed it immensely. And then, after 4 months, they finally got my van fixed, and I had to give that car back. But you know what? I wasn't devastated by it. I was thankful I had that car for 4 months. But if that car would have been mine, and they came and took it away, I'd have thrown a fit, wouldn't I have? Because that's my car. And I would always talk about that car that got taken away from me, or that car that I lost because I couldn't pay for it. And many times our mindset with the things we have is that they are ours, and if God chooses to take them away, we get mad at God. But if we had the right mindset that, hey, these things all belong to him, if he does decide to take those things away, we're just going to be thankful for the time that we had those things. See, it's all about the mindset. It has nothing to do with the circumstances or anything else. And so what do we need to do? Because we just need to make sure we're in the will of God today, and then we won't have to worry about the future. Now, I hope y'all can get this here, because a lot of our excuses for worrying and for being unthankful, it's like, well, I'm just trying to think about my future. I'm just trying to make sure my family is taken care of. We don't have time to go through all the scriptures that I want to on this, but in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, it talks about, not taking thought for, food and raiment or what we shall put on. Basically saying, don't worry, God is going to take care of you. And then he says, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The only thing you and I really need to be worrying about right now is, are we in the will of God today? Okay, now, we're taught to always be panicking about the future, aren't we? I mean, vote for this politician, and boy, he's going to take the country off the cliff in the next 4 years. Y'all are going to be dead meat. Y'all better be worried if they get elected. We're constantly told to worry about these things from the world. But the Bible tells us not to worry about those things. And did you know the Bible, while it tells us not to worry about what's to come, it tells us all kinds of horrible things are going to come. Did you know after Jesus told them in Matthew chapter 6 not to worry about, food and raiment and all these things, God's going to take care of you? You know what he said after that? He said, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. He's like, hey, there's going to be plenty of bad days coming. But don't worry about those. All right, and then I want to show you something else too, because this will really kind of blow your mind. And hopefully this you'll be able to get the message here. But Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21, because we all think we've got reasons and excuses to worry. But I'm telling you, we don't. We all think we have reasons to be unthankful. But look at Luke chapter 21. And we'll start reading in verse 8, or verse 7. It says, and they asked him, Master, But when shall these things be, and what sign will there be when these things begin to come to pass? Talking about his return. And he said, take heed that ye be not deceived. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified. For these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Now this is something we know is coming in the future. The Bible talks about, wars, rumors of wars. Now don't we love to worry about that stuff? What's Putin going to do? What's Kim Jong-un going to do? What's Ahmadinejad? All these crazy people in the world. What are they going to do? We're always worried about them. And the Bible says that, hey, before Christ returns, there's going to be all kinds of wars and commotions. But he said, don't be terrified by them. And then he said unto them, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. He said fearful sights, but he said don't worry about those. But they're fearful. He said don't worry about those. Don't worry about, there's going to be, then he said in verse 12, but before all these things, he's going back to, I believe here he's been talking about the tribulation, but now he's saying even before that, something you guys are going to face, but before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall return to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what ye shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay nor resist. And ye shall be betrayed, both by parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends. And some of you shall they cause to be put to death. And you know what? Most of the disciples were put to death, weren't they? And Jesus, he's telling them horrible things. You're going to be betrayed. Your own families are going to betray you. You're going to be put to death. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But there shall not an hair of your head perish. Wait a minute. Didn't Jesus just say that they were going to be, some of them were going to be put to death? Didn't he just tell them all these horrible things were going to happen? And then he says, but not a hair of your head will perish? What was he talking about? Well, he was basically telling them, it doesn't matter what happens to your body. See, as Christians, we're supposed to be spiritual people, aren't we? We're supposed to be seeking the kingdom of God first. That's a spiritual thing. But yet, as Christians today, we are so earthly minded that's why we worry. That's why we're not thankful, because this world is a mess, isn't it? This world is scary. It's fearful. But as Christians, we're supposed to be above that. We shouldn't be worried about these things. What's the worst that can happen? I know this is easy to say, but what is the worst that can happen to us? We could be put to death. But where are we going to be? We're going to be in heaven. The Bible says that, we overcome the Antichrist. They overcame him. How'd they overcome him? They let him put him to death, and they didn't sin. They didn't bow the knee. They didn't take the mark. And so verse 18, not a hair of your head shall perish. In your patience possess ye your souls. So he's saying that specifically is going to happen to you before all these things, and now he's back to future things. These are things we're going to see, things that we're going to face. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains. He's saying y'all are going to have to run. And let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let them, not them that are in the countries, enter therein. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon the people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. He said, men's hearts failing for fear. Things are going to be so scary that people are going to be dying of heart attacks. That literally scared to death. That's what's coming. But then it says, verse 27, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, Then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Did you know for us as believers, Jesus just said, hey, don't worry. Don't be afraid. Don't fear. But then he tells about tribulation and horrible times. But he tells for us when we see it, man, lift up your heads. Your redemption draweth nigh. Jesus Christ, he is about to return and take you away. And it's like, wait a minute, people, they just get devastated when they think about tribulation and the things that are coming. It's like, as Christians, that we should be above that. Worth focusing on the spiritual things, but yet we worry so much because, man, if tribulation happens, they might come and take all our guns. Well, that's going to stink. But you know what? As Christians, we can still be good and happy without our guns. They can come and take our houses. They can take all of our money. They can even take our lives. And according to the Bible, we have nothing to fear. You know what the Bible says in Matthew chapter 10 and verse 28? Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. I lost my spot. But it talks about, fear not him that is able to destroy the body, but fear him that is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. We're not supposed to fear what can happen to us physically, yet what is 99% of what we worry about and causes us to be unthankful for? It's physical things, isn't it? Am I going to have enough food? Do I have enough clothes? Do I have enough stuff? Do I have enough money? Is something going to happen to me? Am I going to get sick? Am I going to die? Everything that we worry about and focus on today that causes us to not be thankful are physical, material things. And as Christians, aren't we supposed to be spiritual people? Aren't we supposed to seek first the kingdom of God? Aren't we supposed to walk by faith and not by sight? And the truth is, if your soul is secure, you have nothing to worry about. Jesus said, these things, I don't know if I was going to quote, here it is. These things have I spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In me ye might have peace. That's what God wants. But then he said, in the world ye shall have tribulation. What tribulation? I don't want to go through bad times. I don't want to go through hard times. But he said, be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. See, in him, spiritually, we can have peace. In the world, you're going to have tribulation. There's plenty of bad things that you could worry about. Listen, if Hillary gets elected president, I definitely fear for my flesh, okay? For most, even a lot of the Republicans, I fear for my flesh what will happen if they get elected. When it comes to ISIS, I fear for my flesh, okay? When it comes to Democrats, I fear for my possessions, all right? I do worry about what's going to happen. But here's the thing. If I am right with God, if my focus is on the right things, if my mindset is okay, spiritually, they can't touch me, can they? ISIS can't touch me spiritually. Hillary can't touch me spiritually. No Democrat in the world, no Republican in the world can tax away my heavenly treasures, can they? They can't do it. They can't touch it. They can't get it. There's no moth and rust don't corrupt. No thieves break through and steal. IRS can't even get my heavenly possessions. They'll probably try to tax us on it eventually, but if they do try to tax you on your heavenly possessions, they're only going to be able to take away your physical things. They can't touch that. There's no way they can do it. But what we need to admit as Christians today, if we are not thankful, if we are struggling with thankfulness and contentment, it's because we're carnal. We're thinking about fleshly things. 1 John 2:15 says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. A lot of times we do this, and I'm not, don't take this the wrong way, but, people, they'll get to looking at all the things that they have, and just, thank God, look at how wonderful God has been to me. Look at my house. Look at my cars. Boy, God has been good. People will look at our church sometime. Oh, Brother Tommy, God has been so good to you. Look at this wonderful church building you had. Well, is God only good because of this church building? Is God just good because of the physical things we get? Because what if God didn't give us this? What if we were meeting in a cave? Is God now not good? Listen, there are some things that we have that are a product of the world. Okay, I'm not trying to take away God's glory for things, but some things, they are just of the world. Possessions, things, they're of the world. They don't matter. This place, it's going to burn one of these days. We're not going to take this place with us. Okay? It's not really anything. These things are of the world. The world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. Little children, it is the last time ye have heard the Antichrist shall come. Even now are there many Antichrists, which we know that it is the last time. These things, possessions, they're going away, folks. They don't last. The things that you're all worried about trying to get, you're not going to be able to keep them. They're not going to last. You need to have the right mindset if you're going to be thankful people, if you're going to be able to enjoy Thanksgiving. There are plenty of physical things that you can complain about and feel sorry for yourself about if you have the wrong mindset. But if you have the right mindset, no matter what's going on, you understand as Christians, we're supposed to be people who walk after the Spirit, who focus on the spiritual things. And if your focus is on that, you do have nothing to worry about. That's why Paul, sitting in prison, was able to write things like, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Because that prison couldn't touch him spiritually, only physically, but he wasn't thinking about that. And I hope that'll be your mindset. So with that, let's all stand together.